What is the end of the story? The end of the story is your choice. You've heard about some exciting things today. And I appreciated, I met Burley only a couple of years ago. I met him at one of the Veterans Convention. I was impressed by his memory. And I do tell you, memory is a matter of choice. Incidentally, when I boarded my first ship, I was 16 years of age, and I walked triumphantly across the dock with my sea bag and my merchant marine uniform. Do you think I was well received by the chaps on board? Did you bring your tin whistle with you too, sir? All right. Now, in other words, the same thing occurred there. I believe God in His infinite wisdom designed a path, a track for each of us, and we decide how that will lead us. Now, they used to put a library on these ships. The women in the Red Cross or the Salvation Army used to put these little racks in there with paper-bound books. Now, paper-bound books had a value during the Depression because they were sold over and over again. They were sold in used bookstores, but they put them all in there. Time I got there, all the lurid novels were gone, all the magazines were gone, and the only thing that was left was a Bible and a dictionary. I chose the dictionary. Here I have the dictionary. And a lot of those time, I did two things while I was on the ship regularly. I read the dictionary, and I lifted weights. We made our own weights on the ship, and they were made out of 5-gallon paint cans, which support concrete. You had a bar, and so we made all of our weights. And the top weight, we weighed it piece by piece, weighed 247 pounds. I went to Sheepshead Bay weighing 165 pounds. When I left that ship, I weighed 212 pounds, and I looked like I look right now. I was the only one that could press that weight. Why do I tell you this? Because I was also tested later on in my desire to get an education, and I was found to have the highest rated vocabulary in the top 9%. So when I went to night school, I took those advantages with me. I owe this to the merchant marine. You heard about the Merman's Run. You know the sadness of it came with PQ-17. That's an outbound merchant marine infested couriers that took all of the things that we made in the United States and we took them to other countries. And on this particular, I think there were 34 ships. They left, and when they hit Iceland, one of the ships topped out. It had problems. So now you're left with 33 ships. And you're left with a convoy, 22 combat ships, had submarines there. And so when that ship left that port, between its trip to where they were leaving, they had to cross something called the Barents Sea. Do your homework, read about the Barents Sea. We went over in June. The temperature of the water is 45 degrees below zero. And the reason I bring this story to the light for many people, every morning those guys got up with pickaxes and shovels to break up the ice on the deck of that ship so that ship could not capsize. Every morning they got up. And as the day passed on, the waves crash over that ship, and they tell you salt water doesn't freeze. Salt water freezes. And every day they face that. And then 5 days out of their port, out of Archangel English, Archangel, the parts of the ocean are divided by who runs them. and an English admiral by the name of Sir Desmond Pound, decided that where those ships were, the escort was needed because in Norway, someone of you mentioned it, was the famous battleship the Tirpitz. Germans had 2 battleships, great sizable things. One had been sunk, and the Tirpitz was in there, and they believed it was going to come out. And as an antidote for that, this Sir Lord Pound took all the combat services away from those merchant bodies and left them there. With 5 days yet to get into port. The end of the story, 11 of them got in. 11 from 33. 22 ships didn't make it. Now you want to talk about memories? Here's what kept me awake when I read that story. It moves me that I have a difficulty explaining this to people when I speak about it. Those guys knew they were going to die. No reprehensions. You hit that water, you got 4 minutes before you got hypothermia. And with hypothermia, there aren't many times that you recover. But they did it. And we were all volunteers, remember. And that when you hit an impression, and you look that up. Spend some time looking it up, and then look up Bari, Italy, June 1943. Look it up. They called it the second Pearl Harbor. And what happened in that, there was one ship, had requisitioned on it 500 tons of mustard gas. And when that ship took a hit and burned, it disintegrated along with the 2 ships that were tied up about it. 1,000 died on that day, many of them merchant seamen. 1,000 of them died. But that's only the beginning of the story. Because they found out later that an armament was on that ship. There was 500 tons of bombs containing mustard gas, which was outlawed after the First World War. But an English general had ordered it. It was on a ship, and it was there. And it was 40 years later that somebody told us the truth. Not only did 1,000 guys die there, but the ones that took a breath in this orange tapor, this orange smoke, those guys died of a lung infestation for which there is no cure. Now, why do I lay this out to you? Do you make you morose? No. It's my job to tell the public. This is what I tell the public. And I do it in such a way that I am a bit antagonistic. I don't wish to offend anyone. And Padre, they'll occasionally say to me, we don't want any mention about politics and we don't want any religion. And so I say, okay, I understand. I didn't say I agree, I said I understand. So then I start the program off by saying, vocatus sive non vocatus, Deus aderit. Want to translate it? Should I do it, right? God is there whether you're called upon him or not. He's there. And that's what got us through much. Somebody said there are no atheists in the foxholes, and there probably are none. But where do we get our courage to tell our story? I came home, I had 4 things. You mentioned the people that had ulcers. I had bleeding ulcers at 16. And it turned out 40 years later, they find out it wasn't ulcers. I had something called H. pylori, which is a disease, but it's not ulcers. I also had asbestosis, which is a pre-runner because I was in the engine room and out. I also came home with a couple of little things I'm not too happy to talk about. Because I also visit nursing homes and hospitals and worked with psychiatrists over the phone for the most dread disease that occurred in our war and the wars to follow, including your war. It's called post-traumatic stress. And they put a D on it. It's called post-traumatic stress disorder. Never leaves you. Once you got it, you're stuck with it. Now, why can't we tell that story? For a fact, people don't want it. They want happy endings. We'll solve it. We'll put it all together. We'll take care of you. And so we did. We did eventually get the GI Bill of Rights. I was 60 years of age. I told you earlier I could have retired at 35. I don't need them. They don't need me. So I decided in a practice that I would have nothing to do with anything that had to do with that war. My whole philosophy, you don't need me, I don't need you. I built my empire without any help from the government, never took 5 cents. My wife comes in one night and says, guess what? They're going to give you the GI Bill. It says it in here. I said to her, what the hell do I need them for? I never joined an organization. But something happened. They published a magazine from Sheepshead Bay. Now, Sheepshead Bay was one of 3 training centers for merchant mariners. 3 training centers. And then we had of course, the Great Academy. And so I was in Sheepshead Bay. My wife said, they're publishing a book about the merchant marine. Yeah, let me see it. I went to her computer and looked. We had a big screen computer. Look. It is the recruiting magazine from 1944, and I am on the cover. I was a pretty good-looking guy, too. So I said, this is a message for me to work with those that I admire most who aren't alive. It's up to me to tell their story. Now, I lay that on your purse. I've made a lot of speeches, so you don't have my experience, but you have the knowledge. And I said this morning, you taught your children the ABCs. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and you repeat it over and over again until they know it. And you do it with something called a mnemonic and an iambic pentameter. That's what you do, but you don't have to remember those names. That's what we need, and that's what I charge you with. I'm here and I'm happy to join you, but I want you to take forth our message. Because when I was first asked to speak, had my art department design a pennant, and it was an old man carrying a flag. Do you remember what it says on there? Hell no, we won't go away.